I'd like to call to order the Oregon City Council Committee of the Whole meeting for January 20th, 2026. The time is 7 p.m. This is a committee of the, I'm sorry. Please stand and join me for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, this is a committee of the whole meeting and attendance is not required. However, please note that everyone is here. Also, this evening joining us is Mayor Stephen Salander, City Administrator Joel Major, Clerk of Council Josette Snyder, Acting Law Director China Pfeiffer, Public Service Director Paul Roman, Chief of Police Chief Began, Fire Chief Clayton O'Brien, Fire Chief Mark Mullins, Finance Director Nick Roman. Also joining us is Tim Borton, Parks and Rec Commissioner. No. First order of business this evening is persons and delegates. That's all right. Okay. Please come to the podium. Mr. Jim Davis is the first one. State your name and address for the record, please.
Jim Davis, 5494 Bayshore Road. Good evening. There's been a lot of controversy in this area regarding data centers, and we in Oregon are faced with a decision soon regarding the same issue. Many communities in the area called for and passed a moratorium to allow time for the citizens to assess the impact of these facilities upon their respective communities. While we remain strongly opposed to the data center for the many reasons that we have stated in past council meetings, it is realistic to consider what steps need to be taken to ensure that whatever agreement is offered will address the many questions and concerns that have remained unanswered at this point in time. As a result, what I would like to suggest for Oregon is a similar delay to allow for a thorough discussion to occur here in Oregon. It has been about a year and a half since the contract with Capacity LLC has been signed. Up to that point, there had been very little public knowledge or discussion regarding the details of this project. The argument that I have heard from our opponents is that our elected officials represent the people of this city, that we should trust their judgment that this deal is the right decision for Oregon. Yet, it would seem that this decision was made in haste with very little information about the potential negative impact such a project might have on our community. If the results of the recent election and town hall are any indication, it would seem there is significant pushback from the citizenship against this project, despite pressure from county officials and outside groups with a large financial interest in the outcome. At this point, there has been very little public information about the proposed economic development agreement. What we have heard are sometimes wildly inflated estimates of the benefits to the local schools in the city, while proponents have also warned of dire consequences if this agreement is not accepted. So what I am proposing is that once this agreement is available, the full text of the agreement should be released to the public, and a public forum needs to be held so that residents can weigh in with their opinions on the fairness of this agreement. The citizens deserve to hear and understand what concessions are being offered in exchange for any alternate compensation the developer is offering. Other important issues, such as the project labor agreement, construction traffic, lighting, noise, pollution, required setbacks, allowable hours of construction, and their impact on property values, have yet to be addressed and should be addressed in any final agreement. These types of issues have created serious problems for the residents near the Meta project in Bowling Green. To facilitate this, I am advocating that the mayor and city council propose and pass a 6-month moratorium to commence immediately upon its passage. Given the timeline of 2 to 3 years for construction, this would not impose an undue burden upon the city or the developer, and to ensure that all pros and cons of this project are open and available for public discussion and comment. I am sure that such a moratorium might be of some concern to the developer and to some in this community, but this is too important an issue to be made without understanding the full implications of the impact of this project, both pro and con, on the public. Some might argue that this violates the terms of the signed contract, but I would contend that it does in fact meet the terms of the contract, since negotiating and signing this agreement is and always has been a contingency requirement under the contract. In addition, contract revisions have already been made and agreed to accommodate anticipated delays. A 6-month moratorium would just represent another such minimal delay. As I have stated, we at UNO believe that the data center is not a good fit for Oregon, and our group remains opposed to it. But since there is a commitment on the city's part to fulfill its obligations under the contract, moratorium would allow the citizenship to evaluate in full the terms of the agreement that is negotiated and allow them the opportunity to voice their opinions on whether or not it represents the best course of action for Oregon. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Davis.
Mr. President?
Mr. Horniak.
Yeah, Mr. Davis, just to address one of the items that you brought up about being able to review the development agreement, when it's brought forward, assuming it's going to be brought forward at a committee of the whole meeting, that becomes part of the agenda. That's public records and release. So that document is included with that, which if it comes for a committee of the whole, usually that's Thursday, Friday, the week before the Monday, and that allows for a whole nother week before any action could be taken. So there's at least a week plus.
That's not
Okay.
what happened last time. It was a shame because essentially the contract was never discussed or released to the public. There was no knowledge by the public that it was going down. That can't happen. We need a full disclosure of the agreement of all the terms in a public forum so that people can fully understand what is being agreed to. That's our position.
Fair enough. Appreciate that. Thank you, Mr. Davis.
Thank you, Mr. Horniak. Next up, Laura Davis.
Laura Davis, 5494 Bay Shore Road. I didn't prepare a speech tonight. I just want to piggyback on what my husband said. We do not want the data center. It might sound like he was giving up or we're agreeing to it. We're just going to let it happen. We still do not want it. So that's our position. So he's saying if, but I say no. Okay?
Thank you, Ms. Davis. Next up is Amy Mottmiller. Ms. Mottmiller?
Amy Mottmiller, 5040 Corduroy Road. Good evening, Mayor, Council, and fellow neighbors. I want to acknowledge the reality before you. This council is divided and the community is divided as well. That division itself is important context. It signals that the data center project carries the impact that deserves heightened care, thorough process, and defensible documentation. The written follow-up provided by Capacity LLC on December 11th is now posted on the city website and does clarify several technical questions raised during the town hall meeting. That information belongs in public record and should be considered part of this discussion. However, that clarity also draws a clear line between what has been answered and what has not. And it is those remaining unanswered questions that I'm here to address tonight. I understand that some of the council will be attending or trying to attend a data center tour. A tour might demonstrate how a clean, modern facility operates under ideal conditions. But a tour cannot answer the questions residents are asking this council to resolve. A tour cannot substitute for a full anti-degradation analysis for an impaired Lake Erie watershed, a comprehensive water or wildlife and migratory bird impact study, an evaluation of long-term health risk to nearby residents, a wastewater compatibility and coolant disposal analysis, a clear identification of hazardous waste streams and regulatory oversight, public reporting mechanisms for actual water and energy usage, a full cost-benefit analysis that includes residential utility impacts, enforceable community benefit commitments, long-term clarity on on-site power generation and future expansion, industrial setback standards related to nearby residents, documentation impacts to local tourism and seasonal nature-based businesses. Beyond technical studies, there are visible and immediate community impacts that remain unresolved. At last council meeting, I expressed concern about the required acceleration of move-out timelines with homes now vacated and partially disassembled, including the residents at the corner. Giving the perception that the outcomes are being advanced before remaining questions are resolved. There is also a concern about bringing industrial use closer to residential neighborhoods. Communities across the country are responding to this exact issue. In Virginia, where data center development has advanced rapidly, planning authorities are now recommending minimum setbacks of 1,000 feet or more between data centers and residential properties, a recognition that proximity matters. Nationally, more than 230 community, environmental, and local government organizations have formally called for a pause or a moratorium on data center expansions until impact to water, energy, health, and land use are fully studied. This is not resistance to technology. It is demand for responsible sitting of governance. A tour will not show long-term health considerations. It will not show the loss of dark skies, the disruption of migratory bird corridors, or the impact to businesses that depend on seasonal birding and nature-based tourism. Those impacts must be evaluated on paper, in advance, and in public. My request to council is simple and constructive. Allow the tour to inform, but not replace due diligence. Ensure remaining questions are answered in writing, made public, and reviewed before additional approvals proceed. This protects residents, the city, and this council, regardless of how each member currently views this project. Thank you for your time and your service to this community, and I have those questions that weren't answered. There's 11 of them and 3 that were partially answered for everyone so that you can see what those questions were.
Thank you, Ms. Mottmiller. Okay, next to speak is Omar Smeedy, please.
Thank you, Mr. President. Omar Smady, 2949 Camelot. I meant to ask last week when we were talking about the America's 250th Committee, who is on that committee, Mr. Mayor?
I'm not a part of the committee, so I'm not 100% sure who all is, other than I know Beth and City Administrator Joel, so I'll let you answer that.
Yep, no problem. We have students, a handful of students from, I won't name their names, but from both Cardinal Stritch and Clay High School. Julie Powell, who's our taskmaster. And yes, she's right in here. And members from Michelle Quilter attends, and sometimes people from the Historical Society attend with her. So those are the main people, and I'm forgetting his name. Hang on, it'll come to me.
Oh, Zach.
Zach Hetz. Yes, Zach Hetz. Is there anybody else?
Terry Reeves was coming. I'm not sure if he's going to continue to be involved. So, yeah, that's.
That was about it. There were several people that have been invited, but a lot of them just haven't been attending.
Mr. Borton. And,
Yes, and
and
yes, sorry, Tim Borton
Hank.
and Hank are also now attending. So, but anybody's invited, but right now we're kind of shoring some things up, and it's come, we're gonna blink our eyes and we'll be celebrating, so,
Thank you.
yep.
I was talking about litter last week, and I forgot to mention that I dissolved the litter critters. They are no longer in service. There are organizations out there that'll say that if you maintain an area, you keep it clean, that it'll remain clean, but I disagree with that. I feel that after 5 years of doing one spot, it made no difference, and so I just felt like I needed to move on. But if anybody would ever need help in the future, I would be there for them. Thank you.
Mr. President? I just wanted to let Mr. Smady know that I did see somebody picking up along the fence at Walmart, so maybe they watched the meeting and heard you. There was someone in a yellow vest out there. I wasn't even sure, but I thought it might have been you. But they were, before the snow started, I did see them picking up on that east side of where the retention pond is, so maybe they heard you, so thank you.
Mr. President?
Mr. Mayor?
Thank you. Mr. Smeedy, you're absolutely correct. I agree with you too, that from the years of me doing it in the same spot, I agree. Unfortunately, it doesn't remain that way, but thank you for the time that you did spend out there. It is appreciated.
Okay. To go to the agenda items for tonight, on the agenda for discussion is item 5 of 2026, being presented by Mr. Roman. Mr. Roman?
Excuse me. Thank you, Mr. President. This ordinance is needed for the mayor to sign a submerged land lease from ODNR. This is for land that the city owns right across from the UT Research Center, and we want to improve a dike that is there that is basically failing along the lake. So in 2023, we received approval from City Council to submit an application, and unfortunately, it takes 2 years to get something, but we did get it, and this ordinance is just simply needed for the mayor to sign. I did present this 2 weeks ago, and last week, I think not having as many council members, it was a concern whether it would pass as an emergency. So we had asked to move it to the January 26th council meeting next week. But I thought I would just re-present it and simply ask for that motion again, just to make it clear that it would be on for next week. So, but I'd be happy to answer any questions on it.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Roman. Council, is there any additional questions? Mr. Roman, I got one question. Is there, I know this is for the dike wall, is there any plan, I know that the road you drive on along there, it's very bad, so I didn't know if there was any plans in the future to fix that road that is pretty bumpy.
In terms of Luray as the
Yeah.
residential street, no, all the work would be done on the city property. Doesn't mean you couldn't upgrade the road someday, but no, construction would stay on the city property right off of Bay Shore. You would have a construction entrance off of Bay Shore, and just like we, when we constructed the first dike project, so, but no, all the construction remain on the city property.
Okay, thank you. Hearing none, do I have a motion for item 5 of 2026 to move to next week's agenda?
Mr. President,
Ms. Powell,
so moved.
okay. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Ms. Ackerman. We have a motion by Ms. Pauloff, seconded by Mrs. Ackerman, to move item 5 of 2026 to next week's agenda. Council, are there any objections? Hearing none, item 5 of 2026 is moved to next week's agenda. Next on the agenda is item 7 of 2026, being presented by Paul Roman. Mr. Roman?
Thank you, Mr. President. This ordinance is needed to pay Mosier Construction for emergency water line repair at the Oregon Water Treatment Plant. The work occurred this past December. The repair was for a 42-inch trunk water line just outside the high service pump station. I think in general, I just wanted to state that from time to time, there are emergencies in the city that, and someone in our departments, we do have to act on immediately. And this is one of these cases. It was water that could have caused our high service pump station wall to fail to the building. So, but Ohio Revised Code 735.051 does allow city engineers and public service directors to authorize contract work, emergency work, and without formal bidding. And I just want to state that. Now, that doesn't mean you don't need city approval for it. It's just that once you get the actual bill, you then bring that into city council through legislation like this. So I just want to make that really clear. And Mosier Construction has done a lot of work for the plants. Definitely, they just finished our concrete project. They know this very well. This work is, the work to make this repair was a lot of labor, and it was a lot of hand work. You needed a specialty welder to actually make the repair. So it is a high dollar amount. Unfortunately, these things do happen, and it is what it is. So I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Roman. Council, is there any additional questions?
Mr. President.
Mr. Gibbs?
Yes. My understanding of this flange that failed and had to be welded, that line has been in there since 1962. And I'm wondering where we're going to be at in weeks and months and days, in the future, as far as replacing that line possibly.
Yeah, well, well, Mr. President, Mr. Gibbs, your concern is valid. I think, concrete pressure pipe is what this pipe is, and it can last 100 years. And unfortunately, you just never know if you're going to get a failure. The good news is there's 2 pipes that leave the high service. So because you have that, we were able to isolate this section and still operate the plant on the other pipe that leaves the plant. But no, it definitely comes into mind. I've been, for some time now, looking at a preliminary design to expand the water treatment plant. The result so far is it's a high dollar amount, and I really want to take a very closer look at the costs. Doesn't mean you would have to wait for an expansion to fix this, to do a fully replace, but if you are doing an expansion, you probably would do that work at that same time. So it's a question. I do believe they did good work and that it's a solid weld and it'll last, but you never know. And so point is well taken. It's something that we have to think about when we do another improvement out of the plant, to possibly do a replacement at the same time. So appreciate that.
Thank you, Mr. Roman.
Yep.
Thank you,
Mr.
Mr. Roman.
President,
Ms. Powell?
this is for Mr. Roman. The feasibility study, it's still ongoing?
Mr. President, Ms. Pauloff, it is, and like I said, the costs have come in extremely high for just an 8 MGD expansion, which was the lower side expansion. And I have concerns, obviously, with inflation, things are almost 5 times the cost that they were since the last expansion we did. So we'll present that to council. And I know in the budget, we had a line item for detailed design. And I think even to do the detailed design, you may need to borrow, get a loan for that. So it's a big step, and I wanted to make sure that the administration is set on doing it before we bring it to council. But I think we still have a lot of evaluation to do for what's been presented so far.
So do you remember, what was it, the pump that failed at the water treatment plant, or was it wastewater?
We had a wastewater one that failed,
And that was That was a biggie. That was huge.
Yeah, some things can be can still be planned work where you're able to get quotes and such, but something like this was we noticed water coming in through the wall at the high service pump station. And then when you go outside and with water lines in general, a lot of times you'll see water bubble up in the right of way. You know it's a water line break. But in this case, if there's a storm sewer nearby, it's taking all the water. You don't even know there's a break. And when you went to the area where the water was going into the wall, there is a storm sewer. And when we popped the manhole, you just hear it pouring. And it was a bigger break than what you realized. I mean, it was a big deal. I mean,
But can they catch those? Because I know that they can catch, like if your toilet valve is up and it leaks, they can see that you're using an exorbitant amount of water.
Oh, yeah,
So-
that's for a meter, yes. And I think to some degree, this was before our plant meter, see? So it's
Wow.
right off the pump, so you wouldn't really know. But again, when you see the water coming in, you knew it was a big deal.
In these freezing temperatures, will that affect it at all?
No, well, I think water line in general across the city, it's never the temperature, it's the change in temperature. So whenever time you get a drastic change, that's when you get a lot of water line breaks. So I always said Thanksgiving was like the start of water line break season, but anymore, it's all year round. You
Right.
just get these crazy changes.
Thank you for that.
Yep.
Thank you, Mrs. Pollock, Mr. Roman. Hearing none, is there a motion to put item 7 of 2026 to next week's agenda? Okay. Yep. Motion by Mr. Gibbs. Seconded by Mrs. Pollock. We have a motion by Mr. Gibbs, seconded by Mrs. Pollock to move item 7 of 2026 to next week's agenda. Council, any objections? Hearing none, item 7, 2026 is moved to next week's agenda. Next on the agenda is item 8 of 2026 being presented by Mr. Borton. Mr. Borton?
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. Roman and I looked at this. It's our seasonal pay scale, which we've had in place for several years now. We're still above minimum wage in all our positions, which is a good thing. So we don't have to amend any of the hourly wages. It's just a matter of there was a few positions that we wanted to shift in their classification. I had one that I shifted down from Class 7 to Class 6. We still want that kind of assistant to the utility supervisor, but we don't need to pay them quite as much now that they're not doing all the work the utility supervisor was. So that's why I stepped that one down. Mr. Roman had some interns that he stepped up, and I can let him talk about those.
Thought Tim was doing a great job. No, I think just with the engineer interns, we just want to be more competitive with private companies, and it's very difficult to get interns, so we did ask for an increase for them, so that's it. We thought we could do it all at the same time. That's it.
Okay, thank you. Council, any additional questions? Hearing none, I will seek a motion to move item 8 of 2026 to next week's agenda. Is there a motion? So moved. Mr. Walenzak. Is there a second? Second by Mr. Horniak. Thank you, Mr. Horniak. Okay, we have a motion by Mr. Walenzak, second by Mr. Horniak, to move item 8 of 2026 to next week's agenda. Council, are there any objections? Hearing none, item 8 of 2026 is moved to next week's agenda. Next on the agenda is item 9 of 2026 being presented by Mr. Borton.
All right. Thank you, Mr. President. I'm not sure which item 9 is. Can you scroll up just a little bit, Josette, so I talk about the right one? All right. Thank you. This is our annual uniform ordinance. As most of you know on council, through the year, with the increased number of participation in a lot of our programs and also through the increased cost of those uniforms through the years, there are companies that we end up spending more than $25,000 with on annual purchases, not any one purchase. And so therefore, this is just an ordinance to accommodate those businesses that we may spend that amount with. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Burton. Council, is there any additional questions? Hearing none, I will seek a motion to move item 9 of 2026 to next week's agenda.
Mr. President.
Mr. Walczak.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President, I make a motion to move item number 9 of 2026 to next week's regular meeting agenda.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Walczak. Is there a second?
Mr. President, I'll second.
Thank you, Mr. Andrews. We have a motion by Councilman Walczak, seconded by Mr. Andrus, to move item 9 of 2026 to next week's agenda. Council, are there any objections? Hearing none, item 9 of 2026 is moved to next week's agenda. Next is on the agenda for discussion is item 10 of 2026, being presented by Mr. Borton.
Thank you, Mr. President. This is our contract with the Independent Umpires Association. That's the group that we use to cover all our baseball, softball games, also when we pay our umpires for all our other sports. The reason we're bringing the contract forward, there was a slight adjustment to it for our baseball games. The contract has changed, that we'll pay an additional $5 per game. Everything else in the contract stayed the same.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Borton. Council, any additional questions? Hearing none, I will seek a motion to move item 10 of 2026 to next week's agenda.
Mr. President.
Mr. Walczak.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President, I make a motion to move item number 10 of 2026 to next week's regular meeting agenda.
Thank you, Mr. Walczak. Is there a second? Second by Mr. Horniak. Thank you, Mr. Horniak. We have a motion by Mr. Walczak and a second by Mr. Horniak to move item 10 of 2026 to next week's agenda. Council, are there any objections? Hearing none, item 10 of 2026 is moved to next week's agenda. Next is on the agenda is discussion for item 11 of 2026 being presented by Mr. Borton.
Thank you, Mr. President. During the last budget cycle, we did determine we would like to get a design plan to add an HVAC system to our soccer stand. So this ordinance is allowing us to do that. I did get quotes. JDRM was the lowest best quote for just the initial design of the HVAC system. Once we have the design and know the final cost to actually install that, that would have to come back before council. But because this is a consulting agreement, it does have to come before council, even though the dollar amount is, $7,500. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Borton. Council, are there any additional questions? Hearing none, I will seek a motion to move item 11, 2026 to next week's agenda.
Mr. President.
Mr. Walczak.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President, I make a motion to move item number 11 of 2026 to next week's regular meeting agenda.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Walczak. Is there a second? Second by Mr. Horniak. Thank you, Mr. Horniak. We have a motion by Mr. Walczak, seconded by Mr. Horniak to move item 11, 2026 to next week's agenda. Council, are there any objections? Hearing none, item 11, 2026 is moved to next week's agenda. All right. Next on the agenda is item 12 of 2026 being presented by Fire Chief Mr. O'Brien.
Thank you, Mr. President and Council. This ordinance will allow us to purchase 13 portable radios, part of our capital budget plan for 2026. Purchasing them at this time will allow us to get in the state fire marshal grant as far as the funding, the amount goes. So they do a reduced cost through the Ohio Fire Marshal's office, but that's what this indicates. We've been trying to purchase new portable radios each year to replace the 34 radios that we currently have on our system, but are also obsolete, if you will. You can't get parts and things of that nature for it. So we purchased 10 last year. This year, we've budgeted for 13, and that's what this ordinance is.
Thank you, Chief O'Brien. Council, any additional questions? Hearing none, I will seek a motion to move item 12 of 26 to next week's agenda.
Mr. President,
Mrs. Poliff.
so moved.
All right. Thank you, Mrs. Poliff. Is there a second?
I'll second that.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Gibbs. We have a motion by Councilwoman Mrs. Poliff, seconded by Mr. Gibbs, to move item 12 of 2026 to next week's agenda. Council, any objections? Hearing none, item 12 of 2026 is moved to next week's agenda. Thank you. Next on the agenda is item 13, 2026, being presented by Fire Chief Mr. O'Brien.
Thank you, Mr. President. This ordinance will allow us for the purchase of turnout gear. This will be one of two purchases this year in 2026. These first 9 sets of turnout gear we'll purchase for the Safer Grant employees. That'll be starting up in March. And then we have additional gear that will be expiring this year as well, or out of service. That'll come up in late fall. So we'll wait to do it in 2 different purchases so we can take full advantage of the current gear that we have right now. So this is the first of 2, but again, this was also planned in our capital budget plan for 2026 and will come out of our 235 account as well.
Thank you, Chief O'Brien. Council, is there any additional questions? Hearing none, I will seek a motion to move item 13 of 2026 to next week's agenda.
Mr. President,
Mrs. Poliff.
so moved.
Thank you, Mrs. Poliff. Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Thank you, Mr. Gibbs, seconded by Mr. Gibbs. We have a motion by Councilwoman Poliff, seconded by Mr. Gibbs, to move item 13, 2026 to next week's agenda. Council, are there any objections? Hearing none, item 13 of 2026 is moved to next week's agenda. Next on the agenda for discussion is item 14 of 2026, being presented by Fire Chief Mr. O'Brien.
Thank you, Mr. President. This ordinance is actually for our reoccurring costs throughout the year. So operationally, reoccurring costs that we have in multiple different vendors, and that's what's included in Appendix A. And the Appendix A has different vendors that are listed. So we might use multiple vendors for maintenance or different EMS billing supply companies, likely to go over $25,000. So this ordinance is put in place to cover us in the event that we go over $25,000 with any one of those vendors.
Thank you, Chief O'Brien. Councilor, any additional questions?
Mr. President,
Mrs. Ackerman.
Chief, is there a cap on that? If you have a one-time purchase over 25,000, and then it says there's no requirement then for competitive bidding on those?
Mr. President, Mrs. Ackerman, this is actually just for reoccurring costs. If there's any one-time purchase, then we would have to have a special ordinance just for that. So if it's a one-time purchase over $25,000, it would have to go to the competitive bid process, and then we would bring that back for that single project. For example, just like the turnout gear being over $25,000 or the motor or for the radios. With those being over, that's a single one-time project. This would be for maintenance issue, like I use maintenance because that's the easiest way to explain, is that we'll use American Enterprise for maintenance, but we'll also use W.W. Williams. And over time, those maintenance costs would be over $25,000 with either one of those in the same type of service work. And so we don't necessarily do a competitive bid to award it to just one company, because not one company can always satisfy all those needs at the time that we need. I'll also use another example when it comes to, we did a bid last year with an electrical company, and when we entered into that bid with that electrical company, awarded it, then when we needed electrical service, we're supposed to be first contact and they come, and that never happened. Even though we would likely not go over $25,000 with them, there was no really point to enter into an agreement or such award a bid with them. So that's why we handle it this way, that in the event that it goes over $25,000, but there's not necessarily a cap. So we could spend, $75,000 at American Enterprise due to maintenance, but that's just really the cap for us is that 25, that we don't want to forget come September or even midsummer that we're about to go over 25,000 and not have this ordinance in place to cover us.
Thank you.
Yep.
Mr. President,
Mrs. Pollock.
are the prices getting high with what they are doing? Is that the reason why you're getting more than, it seems like it's getting more and more expensive every year.
Mr. President, Mrs. Pollock, the prices are high, but I think it's a factor of a couple different things. I've used maintenance, for example. I'll also use EMS supplies, for an example. The supply chain is also an issue too. So not only do the prices change, but we can't always just lock ourselves into one vendor because whatever might be available. So you'll see that you see a couple different vendors on here in EMS supplies, such as Boundtree. So like if you have Boundtree, that we're gonna go over 25,000, but there might be another EMS supply company that we would use because they can't necessarily get it. But that's another factor as well.
But these are just the normal, everyday people that you use on a yearly basis without change.
That's right. This is just a normal, everyday, reoccurring. The other thing is, instead of having an ordinance for each one of these separately, that's why it's all, put into an Appendix A to have all the vendors here. So it just makes it for one ordinance, makes it easier, more efficient, but also it is only for your normal operational costs, essentially. If it is a single purchase, back to what Ms. Ackerman said, if it's a single purchase, we would come back and explain what that single purchase is, and this is just for reoccurring costs.
Right, but I understand the reoccurring, this happens constantly, whereas if it was like a single, like if you're buying a new rig, that, of course, is gonna go for a separate ordinance, but
Yep.
with these, it's more or less like your yearly things that you always come forward with.
Yes, and multiple invoices. So EMSMC, for example, is our EMS billing company. We get an invoice every single month for EMSMC. So we're eventually gonna go over 25,000 with EMSMC. That's how this ordinance covers it. Same with the maintenance, American Enterprise. We'll spend over 25,000 with American Enterprise doing just general maintenance on the apparatus. But those will be over multiple invoices. It won't be just one single essential. Now, let's say there's something that needs to be fixed on the truck. It comes back as a quote. So like it goes out for a PM and it needs a whole new transmission. And that's gonna be a single one for an amount, a certain amount of money, over 25, we would bring that back. We wouldn't just, throw that in on this. So if it's a single project amount for over 25,000, that would always come back. But this is just our normal, regular, everyday operations as far as the reoccurring cost goes.
Yeah, this is like little tiny invoices all built up into one.
That's correct. And I didn't want to find ourselves in a spot where, you get to that point where then you do eventually, because likely you're going to go over 25,000, but you don't want to remember in June or July that, oh, we got to make sure we have an ordinance in place. But in reality, the other part to that is then even if we did think that we're not awarding a bid and then being locked into just one company. Because we're going to buy from Boundtree, we want to buy from PennCare, we want to use American Enterprise, but we have to use W.W. Williams. It's who's available, who's best price, who can do the things at the given time and at the quickest. So that's what that is.
Thank you for that.
Yep.
Thank you, Mrs. Paul. Thank you, Chief O'Brien. Council-
Mr. President,
Mr. Horniak.
just a question kind of going back to that. Chief, out of the list you've got here and didn't do the count, I'm going to guess there's about a dozen of them, give or take. How many of those do you anticipate having annual expenditures with over $25,000? I mean, just best guess estimate.
Mr. President, Mr. Horniak, as far as amount or how many of these vendors do you expect that we would go?
Out of these vendors you list here, how many of those do you expect to pay more than $25,000? How many, let me ask you maybe an easier question to quantify. How many of these vendors were paid over $25,000 in 2025?
But it'll actually probably be, I would expect that majority of all of these, we would go over 25,000. There might be maybe 3 or 4 that would be close, but not necessarily go over. But it saves us in the event that we do.
Okay. Seeing that as we get to that point, I understand that not having creeping expenditures to $25,000 where somebody's basically watching the checkbook, if you will, every month for what that is, but there's also a rationale for why that is and why that's in place of the $25,000 limit. I know in other departments and other areas, we do enter service contracts with multiple vendors. Why wouldn't we do the same thing with the fire department that we do in others, like maintenance, things of that nature, fleet maintenance, police, other things like that? Why wouldn't we enter into agreements with these individuals as vendors as opposed to one blanket catch-all ordinance?
So the reason why is, I'll use the example of that electrician, the electrical company, when we awarded that bid for electrical, and then when we needed the electrical, then we never got a call back. So we were then locked into this, that said electrical company, rather than being able to, call whoever to be able to get, even though the electrical work was not gonna be over 25,000, we still had that bid in place with that electrical company,
Okay.
if that makes sense.
It does, but I guess I go back to one of the first ordinances we pass every year for the 10 years I've been here is we open the ability to accept vendors, contracts, POs, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Does that not cover this?
Mr. Roman?
So, Mr. President, Mr. Horniak, well, in this case, this ordinance is no different than the rec ordinance as well. And it's just, they could be small purchases each time you make a purchase. It's just that throughout the year, it may grow to a cost higher than 25,000. But these are normally services that you either are purchasing a product or a service. Every year, Public Service will do by our blanket contracts, which is more about consulting. It is more about a design or survey work and so on, where they're individual contracts. These are vendors that simply accept a PO for the purchase of a service. So it's a little bit different than how I do it. It'd be nice for me to just do it in one big ordinance, but it might be difficult to do that with multiple contracts that are required by the blanket contract vendors that I go through. But these are just small purchases that can just build up through the year. And I think through audits and years prior to us even doing our blanket contracts, I'd hire a surveyor, it'd be 8,000 here, 8,000 there. I do another survey, I'm over 25,000. The auditors say, wait a minute, you gotta have a contract once you're above that. Well, that's what you're taking care of with this ordinance, and that's the same for rec. Ours are a little bit different, where you'll have an individual ordinance, but it's almost the same thing, okay?
I understand. Is there sense to this, and I just know over the years, we've had multiple conversations of the threshold limit for going out to bid. You mentioned earlier emergency services that have to be repaired immediately. We have to be able to do those things. Wouldn't an approved vendors list blanket for the city? I'm sure other departments have the same need.
And that is something that we had discussed, but with never having done it before, and especially like so with rec having done theirs for their jerseys, and they were already doing it annually, we figured we'd give it a try with the fire department. We did actually bring most of these vendors last year as single ordinances. And so this year we thought that we would try to move forward with just putting it in one and see how it seems to work out, and hopefully, maybe next year, we could do that overall with everybody.
So this more or less, same concept, specific department.
Yeah, just in
Okay.
one
So
ordinance.
this is
rather.
our trial balloon, if you will. Okay,
Correct.
fair enough. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Mr. Horniak. Thank you, Chief O'Brien. Thank you. Council, any additional questions? Hearing none, I will seek a motion to move item 14 of 2026 to next week's agenda.
Mr. President,
Mrs. Poloff.
so moved.
Thank you, Mrs. Poloff. Is there a second? Thank you, Mr. Horniak. We have a motion by Mrs. Poloff, seconded by Mr. Horniak, to move item 14 of 2026 to next week's agenda. Council, are there any objections? Hearing none, item 14 of 2026 is moved to next week's agenda. With all the items on the agenda being considered, we will now move on to the mayor's report. Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. President. No report.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Major.
Thank you, Mr. President. A couple of items. The first one is that the NOAC, the Northwest Ohio Aggregate Coalition, through Palmer Energy, has received requests for proposals for the next round of contracts for the electric aggregation. And it appears that the recommendation is for a 25-month term with Dynegy, continuing with Dynegy. We just received this today, so I wanted to make everybody aware that this will be coming up on the city council agenda in the very near future. It could be next week, or it could be February 2nd, committee of the whole, so depending on the mayor and council's desire. So I just wanted to point that out. So this will be sent out shortly. And also, I want to preface this with, we're still trying to confirm this, but having to do with the purchase and sale agreement in the industrial park with Capacity LLC. We're anticipating that we'll get a request for another amendment for an extension due to the detailed load study, the delay of that getting completed. So just wanted to bring that to City Council's attention as well. We are trying to confirm that, but it appears at this point as though First Energy is not delivering on the timeline that they had said they would. So just wanted to point that out. And Mr. President, that concludes my report. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Major. Mrs. Pfeiffer.
No report.
Okay, thank you. Mr. P. Roman.
I just want to comment on the questions earlier on the data center. I can easily foresee a committee meeting, if not several committee meetings, before you consider that economic development agreement. So sometimes if a developer needs time to do their studies, it's worth us asking to also have time in there for these committee meetings. And I think it's important we answer questions, we exhaust all concerns before we consider anything. So it can't just be a committee of the whole meeting and a council. I think there needs to be a committee meeting. And I think appropriate in this room is a good place to do it. So that's just a comment. Thanks.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Roman. Mr. Horniak.
Nothing from my standing committee, but following up on what Mr. Roman had said and what Mr. Mazur had said is, I guess first question is to the administration, do we have a timeline on a development agreement yet?
There is, so we had the original purchase agreement and then we had two amendments, which extended certainly timeframe. I believe they have till March 31st to really complete everything. But again, that load study's not done.
Right.
And I know even in recent news, a comment was made that Zuckerberg had purchased a portion of Davis-Bessie's capacity. And the question in my mind is, how does that affect this project? You know, you don't know, but it's another question. So I think everything was to come to fruition in January and February, and that study's not done yet. So I believe there's going to be a request for an amendment, and so be it, and we'll turn her, and I think just because you do an amendment doesn't mean you're not going to have these other meetings to discuss it further. So it was to all occur by March 31st. I think this extension will obviously be a request to go beyond that. So, and we'll get that from Mr. Turner. Do I answer the question? I'm sorry. if I didn't.
Mr. President?
Not really.
Okay, all right.
Mr.
When do
President-
we think we're going to see a development agreement?
Oh,
Mr. Major?
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. Horniak, not until after the load study's done.
correct.
That's for sure, that's for certain.
Okay.
That is for certain. So that is what's holding everything up.
Correct.
And I know I was misquoted in the paper at one point. It's a gating event, so a gate. So that has to be done before everything else can move forward. So the load study is holding everything back right now, including the negotiations of the development agreement at this point. But-
Okay. So I guess the question I'm going to pose and maybe make a suggestion, because I do agree, probably doing a committee meeting, whether that's economic development, whether it's finance, whether it's some other committee, I do believe that that makes sense. But I guess here's the part of my confusion, and maybe if there is going to be any kind of deviation from the agreement that's already been approved, I would think Mr. Turner would want to be here to have that discussion, because here's the part that has me confused. 2 weeks ago, Mrs. Montmiller shared on the floor that people were being evicted and moved out of their homes, which is not accurate. They are being offered a six-figure incentive to move out of their homes by a certain date. So why the two messages? We want to get people out of those houses because we want to start work in March, but we want an extension on that. And I understand the load study, I get that, but we're still 10 weeks away from what their current agreement is. If they're trying to advance faster on activity on the ground on that parcel, but then asking for a potential delay in the purchase agreement, those two things don't kind of go hand in hand, right? Those two things don't look the same. So we want to go really, really fast, but we're going to need a little bit more time. So if they're offering six figures, and I understand that the six-figure offer was not only offered to the, I think, one family that is still in their home, everybody else has moved out. They've basically said, we're giving it to everybody. Everybody's got it if you're out by, I think it's March 1st. So it wasn't an eviction, they're not being forced, and if those people said, I want to stay here to the end of the agreement that I signed, they can do so, and nobody can say boo about it. So there is no eviction. They're getting, I would move if somebody put that number in front of me. I would be out of my house in 30 days, no questions asked. But I guess I just look at this with, again, my curious mind says, we're paying people six figures to go fast, but we think we're going to ask for another timeline. Now, from the community side of Mr. Davis, I'm sure you like the idea that there's your built-in moratorium. But ultimately, I mean, I don't know if anybody else feels the same on that. I just look at that going, okay, we want to hurry up and go fast, but we're going to need some more time. Those two things they don't fit together.
Mr.
Like I
President.
said,
Mr. Major?
Yep, thank you, Mr. President. Mr. Horniak. I don't disagree. However, these are things that are completely outside of their control. This has everything to do with First Energy's inability to complete the load study in the timeline that they said they would have it completed by. So they're banking on, so the first extension went to March 31st from a potential closing or anticipated closing of late last year to March 31st, over 3 months, to now, we don't know yet, but this is what we're anticipating, is another extension. We don't know for how long, but it is because they were informed by First Energy that they would have this load study from them. We do not. And it keeps getting pushed out by them, so it is forces completely out of their control. They were anticipating that they would have followed through on what they had promised to deliver. So that's.
understand.
And my understanding is that at least Will, or maybe the team, is planning to attend the meeting when the discussions happen for the potential extension.
Probably pretty worthwhile, because the the day after the meeting when Ms. Montmiller broke that up, because I thought, my goodness gracious, I've not heard this. And I had talked with a couple of people literally the next day who had either seen the meeting, heard the meeting, and reached out to me and said, let me explain to you what this really was. And again, probably not great communication at, hey, we're going to talk to the homeowners about this. Would have been nice to be on the inside of that information where it goes to. But the question I asked to the first individual that called to give me the information and clarify was, but I'm confused because they don't own the property. They have a purchase agreement in place, but it's not executed. You haven't closed on the property, so you want to start moving dirt in March, you're offering people 6 figures to vacate so that you can start doing that, but you want an extension and you want to start working on property that you don't own. All this just gets into my logical mind going, whoa, wait a minute. Right. And you know, I think a committee hearing on its own is probably worthwhile, just finding, okay, what exactly are we doing here? Because I think we're all chasing a tail here, and I don't know that anybody's got a firm grasp on it. And I think it would be nice to have that communication of, okay, exactly what are we trying to do here? Because you can't go fast for March, but tell me you need a delay until whatever down the road. Those two things don't go together. So, and with that, I'd close. I just, like I said, wanted to put it out there because these things create questions in my mind because they just logically don't connect. Thank you, Mr. President.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Horniak. Mrs. Polloff.
Thank you, Mr. President. Nothing from my standing committee, but with this cold weather, schools are closing because of the cold weather. Today, I find out that deliveries aren't happening in this cold weather either, which really disappointed me for the end of the week. So I really want to thank police, fire, the streets department, water distribution, rec, anyone who works outside. Thank you for not canceling because a lot of people don't want to go outside, but I know that all of you have to, and I really appreciate that. Thank you very much. And also, too, today I had a conversation with Doug Wagner, and he wanted me to extend Paul, Mr. Gibbs, and Mr. Andrews. He's back from vacation, so if you want to reach out to him to talk to him about the water treatment plant, that's totally up to you. He, I asked if anyone had reached out. He said he was on vacation for the last week and a half. Was it a week? So, yeah, he wanted me to relay that to you. So that's all for my report. Thanks.
Thank you, Mrs. Polloff. Mr. Walczak.
I have no report this evening, Mr. President.
Thank you, Mr. Walczak. Mrs. Ackerman.
Nothing from my standing committee, but I just wanted to ask if we had talked earlier, when we had a cold snap earlier, or in '25, about warming centers. Are we putting that out there as a city to let the public know if there are any churches or facilities that
Mr. Roman, I hear you.
That question, other than reaching out, I know Joel just mentioned the senior center and the library you mentioned. So if the ask is, do we need more is the question, or?
Yeah, well, just like if people have, their power goes out, or they have some issues, or, you know, some people, I was in Tractor Supply the other night, and a woman was coming in to buy propane, and I didn't respond fast enough to ask, like, oh my Lord, where are you that you're filling up a propane thing and you expect to stay warm in this weather? You know, like, what is your situation? And it's been bothering me ever since, because I know people try to winter in their campers even, and you know how that's gonna be, how cold it is. So I just know Toledo, Lucas County, they put out, you know, hey, there's a list, but I know our senior center closes. When schools close, they're closed. So I don't know, I just wanted, what kind of resources can we put out there when we're gonna have a cold snap like this for the public?
Obviously to the senior center, just to enable to announce it, but also look to see if there's any other resources for people to go
I
to.
feel like we had a list in '25, didn't we, at the end of '25?
I do not recall
The cold
that.
snap? Okay. Just 24 hours. Right, yeah. I don't know. Well, I just, You know, this, when it gets this bitter cold, if pipes break and power goes out. There was somebody saying, well, my furnace won't, because of how cold it was and how windy, their furnace wouldn't stay lit, stuff like that. I just wonder, you know, people have somewhere to go. But anyway, as far as America 250, oh, I'm sorry. Oh, Omar, Mr. Smady left, but as far as the America 250, we're certainly not an exclusive group of people. Anyone has any ideas or input, anything, please, you know, we need to get it out there more when we're going to have a meeting. And it's a nationwide event, and we want as much input as possible. So, pardon? When is our next one on? The 7th?
The 9th.
The 9th, okay.
February 9th.
February 9th. In this room, correct? At 4 o'clock? Okay, thank you. So, yeah, it's open to anyone. We're not, we're done with doing, you know, a few deciding everything for everybody. So that's it for me. Thank you. Everybody stay warm.
Okay, thank you, Mrs. Ackerman. Mr. Andrus.
Mr. President, no report from my standing committee.
Thank you, Mr. Andrus. Mr. Gibbs.
Mr. President, I have nothing to report, but I was glad to see that we got that 42-inch line repaired at the water station.
Okay.
That's all.
All right, thank you, Mr. Gibbs. I have no report. I would just like to send a shout out to all the people that work out in the cold, and be safe, be careful, and yeah, the only other thing I have is I believe Mr. Horniak at one time was looking into it. I believe Mr. Major was about touring, and Mr. Andrus, about touring a data plant. I didn't know if there's any headway, if who's ever trying to organize it, if there is or isn't, or does that.
Mr. President, I believe Clerk of Council has some information with regards to that. Sorry, I didn't mean to put you on the spot.
Joseph.
We'll help her dodge that.
I did talk to Gisette, and I can bring up, I know Gary Thompson was trying to coordinate such a tour, and I know that the people conducting it would be from the city of New Albany, and I don't think that would include going inside the data center. So I thought, well, that's not good. I mean, I don't know. I think it's maybe we need to rethink or talk to Gary further about it. I would think you'd want to see inside. I've been to the outside. I'd want to see the inside, so. For what it's worth. That's all that I know, and that was from talking to Gisette, so.
Mr. Horniak?
Yeah.
No, you're correct.
Basically, it'd be an exact duplicate. Josette, Ms. Snyder and I talked before the meeting, and she had said, you know, they're, I'll say, not really able from the city of New Albany to help us with the inside tour, and the facility is not necessarily doing those because, I'll just say, all the attention that's on it nationally at this point in time. But I think they're still working to try to find some dates or whatever that may be, and if there is an option to see them from the interior, because I know a lot of other people have done the same. I mean, I've driven by a few of them. I've knocked on doors of the people who live, call it across the street. Yeah, I've done that. You don't need special permission to do that. But talking with the folks in New Albany could be, I think, an interesting dialogue and worthwhile. Because I believe that they did utilize a moratorium on these for a period of time, looking at infrastructure and resources. So I think it's work in progress. It sounds like some dates should be suggested relatively soon, and then those that can attend will certainly try to do so. I think that's the best update we'd have. Is we're still working on it. We're really, really close.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Roman, Mr. Andrus, and Mr. Horniak. That's all I have. If there's no further business before council, I seek a motion to adjourn.
Mr. President.
Mr. Gibbs.
Seeing as how we don't have any games to rush off to, I got something I'd like to share here.
All right.
This email came across to everybody, but it's about our security, our metal detectors out here and the jobs that they do. And it says, "I want to thank all our security staff for their dedication and professionalism, as well as the extended hours they work throughout the year to ensure the safety of everyone." This is interesting because during 2025 Security Activity Summary, total individuals entering the building, 26,898. Total metal detector alarms generated, 8,536. Arrests and summons issued, 69. Disorderly conduct warnings issued, 16. Contraband discovered via metal detector or X-ray, 251 knives or scissors, 54 canisters of mace, 40 cubitons, 18 spikes, sharp picks, 4 screwdrivers, 3 box cutters, and 1 pair of brass knuckles, and 4 tasers. Respectfully, Trent Schroeder, Court Administrator and Chief Bailiff. I think that's a good report because we've got some security here that works. That's all, Mr. President.
Mr. Gibbs, do you know what a cubiton is?
Have no idea.
All right, thank you. All right.
What is it?
I have no idea. That's why I asked you.
Does anybody know?
So it's,
It looks like this, but it has grips on the side and a point on the bottom so you can hold it and jab somebody with it.
Oh.
yeah. Also, say, if you think
Mr.
about the
Horiak?
FBI sticks where you can slide it and they extend and the end of that is steel, a lot of times those are also termed as the same.
Okay,
A lot of people use that in.
all right, cool, thank you.
Let's just be glad it wasn't all at the same time.
Okay. I seek a motion to adjourn.
So moved, Mr. President.
Thank you, Mrs. Pollitt. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Horiak. Thank you, Mr. Horiak. Meeting's adjourned. Thank you.